Hello, 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 and welcome to this presentation. Just getting started here. So thank you everyone who's joining this call or listening in on the replay. I acknowledge you and appreciate you being here because it means that you are serious about what you're doing. You care about your book, you care about your message, and I want to honor that and respect that because I'm in the same boat as you are. And I've been through the struggles that many of you are facing right now or will face on your journey. And I want to, having been there and done that and learned the ropes, it's just really in my heart to help you to have an easier time with it, which is why I've put this presentation together for you. So just quickly before I start, the reason that I'm even doing this is because in the fall of last year, we put out our 8th book, which is this one right here, which is, this is my wife, Cassie Morenzi, and her publisher, and I've been publishing her book since 2014. And, you know, we put out this book, it became an Amazon bestseller. We sold hundreds of copies. And of course, you know, all of my author friends all want to know how do I get those results? How am I, you know, achieving those results? And last year, 2021, you know, seeing the need, I started doing consultations for authors and, you know, helping them that way, but I can only help them one at a time. So this year, when again, you know, I have another influx of people wanting to know, how do I get the results that I get? It's like, let's be a little bit smarter. Let's put this into like a webinar kind of format so that people can, you know, I can reach more people with the message instead of just one at a time. So that's what I'm about here. But on the flip side, I'm also about this. And this is my own book that I wrote back in 2015. And this is a story that's very, you know, personal to me. It wasn't something I'd planned. It was just something that came to me very powerfully. And, you know, I felt the Lord was just wanted me to get this out there. And so I wrote it, I finished it, I put it on Amazon, did a little bit of promotion for it. And then I'm kind of ashamed to say it now, but I just kind of washed my hands of it, you know, and just said, you know, this is something the Lord's given me. I've done my job. I'll let, you know, it'll find its audience. And, you know, it's floundered. And I'm going to come back to that because I treated my wife's books differently than I treated my own, you know, because probably like many of you, I'm like, who am I? Why would anybody listen to me? Why would anybody care about my book? But what I'm really coming to appreciate now is that your message matters. If you have a story that's been put on your heart, if you've got a unique insight into how to solve somebody's issues, you know, if you've got like a children's book that'll, you know, help them to cope with life better or educate them in some way, your message matters. It matters. And you have a unique voice that's only been given to you that other people are going to resonate with. And so it's not enough just to put it out onto Amazon. Amazon is really an app name because it is a jungle of 33 million books and counting. You know, I don't know the exact statistics because I don't share them, but I'm pretty confident you're adding a few hundred books daily to the Amazon book ecosystem. And, you know, although it's never been easier to publish a book, it's never been harder to get it noticed. So just putting it on Amazon and hoping and praying that it's going to find an audience just isn't enough. You know, we have to, you know, I say, if we had a child, we wouldn't put our child in the Amazon rainforest and leave them there just on hoping that they'll find a way to thrive and survive, that's crazy. But we do that exact same thing with her books. And that needs to stop. And I'm here to help you to find more success with your books. So let's get into this. And I'm going to come back to my own book here near the end, because this is my story and journey along with yours. So welcome to the Sell More Books webinar here. My mission here is to inspire and empower Kingdom authors to find their fans, magnify their message, and to sell more books, thereby having a positive impact on the world and a positive impact on your own life. So who am I and why listen to me? That's a great question. So my name is Preston Squire. I have been self-publishing books and publishing for other authors, particularly my wife, since 2014. And we started back then. So, my kind of story is back in 2014, I got laid off from my government job. So I'm looking like, how do I make some money here? How do I turn things around while I'm, looking for work? I did get a payout, so I had a little bit of luxury of not needing something immediately. And somebody I followed had this how to make money on Amazon course. So I'm like, I've got a bunch of books that I've got in my head, and I've got a bunch of books that I've written. And, so let's look at this Amazon thing. So I took this course, but like probably many of you, I didn't have any books finished. I had books in my head. I had books I was working on and had been working on for years. I didn't have anything finished because it was never good enough. It was never done. My wife, though, she is a little firecracker. She gets something in her head and she just goes and does it. And she was very briefly, she's a personal trainer, but she was a personal trainer who struggled with overeating, eating excessively, eating candy all the time, and although she was fit because her job demanded that she be fit, she still had this compulsive eating that she couldn't stop. And, it occurred to her, if being Christian, if Jesus has given us authority over scorpions and snakes and this power, why do we not have power over this? And so she started going to God with her message. And that became this book here, Healthy by Design, Weight Loss God's Way. So she had this book. She wrote it. She sold a few copies to her church, and then she shelved it. And, she wrote that in 2008. This was now 2013. She shelved this book, but it's like, there's a book right here. It's great content, and it meets some of the key criteria for a successful book. And I'm going to cover that a little bit later. But so I said, let's use this book. Let's brush it off, refresh it a little bit, and put it on Amazon using these techniques that I've learned and see what happens. And that's what we did. And, this was the book that I released on Amazon back then. And yes, it's not a very good cover, I know. I know. But, this was what I did at that time. I did a few things right with this. I did a lot wrong, but I did enough right that it actually found an audience. And we started selling about 30 books a month. If I ran some promotions, I might get it up to 100, largely doing free and 99-cent promotions. So, but if I didn't do anything, we would sell 30. So one a day, which isn't obviously great, but it's not terrible. And that enabled her to start a following. And she ended up starting a Facebook group to help people to go through the book. And then that began a website, which began courses, which has now grown into her own six-figure business. So, but it all started with this book going on Amazon. Now, Fast forwarding to today, we now sell over 1,000 copies books a month. And that's what you're here for. How did I go from 30 to over 1,000? Well, it wasn't just luck. It wasn't just leave it on Amazon. It took a whole lot more than that. And I've, taken the courses, I've learned the distinctions, I've, tried this and that and the other thing. So I've been through this journey over the near decade that I've been doing this. So I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And that's what you're here for today. So you can learn from me, because I'm not talking just as a pundit who, giving you some good ideas. I'm talking from somebody who's got the real world results month in and months out to show you that this can be done and how it can be done. So that's who I am. So these are the main things we're going to cover here. Finding your fans, terrific titles, compelling covers, and marketing made easy. Now, you may notice that one thing I don't have on here, which is everybody's talking about these days, is, make your book a best-selling book. And yes, that's in here. Most of our books, almost all of our books have been best-selling books on Amazon. But the current strategy that's going on, the current hack that's being taught, it doesn't sell books. Unfortunately, that sounds counterintuitive, because don't you have to sell books to become a bestseller? Well, I'll tell you just quickly here. Well, I am all for everybody having a best-selling book. The hack that people use right now is just to get their friends and family to buy their book all in the same hour at a discounted rate. So it temporarily drives it up to 99s, to a bestseller. It's a little bit more complex than that, but not much. But the problem with using this strategy is it sounds great. You get to have a best-selling book. And a lot of pundits are making a lot of money selling this, courses with this technique. Get a best-selling book in 30 days or 60 or 90 or even a weekend in some cases. But the problem is a lot of these guys aren't teaching the fundamentals to make your book sellable. So even though you hit bestseller because friends and family bought your book, nobody else buys it because the fundamentals aren't there. And that's what's really got me to share what I'm doing, because I want to make sure that you have these fundamentals in place. If you want to use a bestseller book strategy, go ahead. No, not saying not to do that, but don't do it without these fundamentals, because without these fundamentals, you're going to just hit this nice little tag on your book for an hour, and that's it. And then your book just stops selling because you don't have these basics in place. So I want to make sure that you know what you're doing so that your book has a chance to sell and sell consistently in and out. And these are 4 key things that are really going to make a difference. So the first one is finding your fans, identifying your audience and your niche. So what do I mean by this? Well, this is probably the most common and most critical error I see authors making, is that they do not have a clearly defined audience that they are writing to and then marketing to. If you don't know who your audience is, they don't know either. That's a big problem, because they won't self-identify. And you're going to see everything that we're going to be covering is going to hinge on knowing your audience. So you have to kind of know who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, whether it's, a fiction or a nonfiction. Who is people who are going to want to read this book? Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, everybody is going to enjoy my book, or everybody will benefit from reading my book. Well, the problem is, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody, because it's A, going to water down whatever you're saying. B, when you're on Amazon with 33 million other books, having a broad message doesn't resonate with anyone, and you're competing with everyone. right? It makes being able to stand out virtually impossible. And you can't really market effectively to everyone, but you can market very effectively to someone. So understanding who your audience is, who will be the ideal person who will benefit most from your book or enjoy your book the most is a key fundamental to having success with your book when you launch it on Amazon. And let me give you an actual example here. So this is, of course, the book that we started with. It doesn't look like this now, and we're going to get into that later. But when I first put it on in 2013, this was the original cover. And because this had some success, a friend of ours said, hey, I've got this book out here, but it's not selling at all. Can you help me? So I said, sure. And, I took a look at what he was doing. There was a bunch of fundamental things here wrong. His title was terrible. His book cover wasn't great and stuff. So I applied some of what I knew and, came up with this one. And yes, it's terrible. It's horrible. I admit it, but this is where I was back then. I was just starting off. And this sold significantly better than this one did. But it didn't really catch on. No matter what I did with it, I couldn't get this book to sell like this one did, right? And what I really came to understand was one of the key differences is that this book, Weight Loss God's Way, spoke to a very specific and niche audience. It spoke to Christians who were looking to lose weight. And there weren't a lot of books in that niche. So there was maybe 24 books at that time talking about, a Christian approach to weight loss. Gwen Shambling, who you may know because unfortunately she died in an airplane accident and had quite a bit of press coverage since. And a few other of her contemporaries had started something in the 70s and it kind of, had some success and then pittered out. But there was a couple dozen books on it. And so when we put our book out, it didn't have a lot of competition. It had a very focused audience. And my wife had a different approach. So it was different than anything else that was out there. So it found an audience. It wasn't a great book. At this point, we have revised it a few times. So it's a much better book now. It wasn't a great book at the time, but it was in a small audience there wasn't a lot of competition and it stood out and had its own message. Elon's book over here, though, was very general health centric. It spoke about very general health principles and could only be categorized in the most general health grouping, of which there were at least 1 million other books. And again, his book wasn't great, wasn't terrible. It just wasn't great either. And if it's not great, why is anyone going to buy it when there's so many other better options out there, right? And what killed me is Elon is actually Mr. Vegan Universe. In other words, he won Mr. Universe in a vegan category. So he is recognized at that time the top person in that field. And I'm like, Elon, you've got to write a book on being a vegan bodybuilder and the diet and the exercises and everything you did. And he's like, no one's going to buy that. Like, there's not that many vegan bodybuilders. And he's right. Of course, there's maybe a few hundred in the world. But here's the thing. There's no one talking to them. So if you've got your book out and you're the only one speaking to them, you're going to sell a couple hundred books because you're the only one there. And he's the expert. He is the authority in that field. He could have easily sold a few hundred books just in that tiny little niche, whereas this one struggled to sell any at all because he went wide and was trying to speak to everybody. Don't go wide. It's counterintuitive, I know, but being able to narrow down your audience is so important. Let me give you another mindset shift on this. And that is that back before Amazon, and many of us still have this mindset, especially if you're my generation or earlier, you would have to sell your books to a publisher. The publishers would have to sell their books to the bookstores. And the bookstores ultimately are looking for books that they're confident they can sell the most of. They're not looking for a niche book. They're looking for something that's going to have a more general audience. And so that's what tended to sell. Amazon has completely turned that on its head, because Amazon is the foremost place for people to buy books now. Even if you have your books in bookstores, most of your books are still going to get sold on Amazon. And Amazon is a search engine like Google, which means people type in what they're looking for and it pulls up the books that match that. This is very specific. This is very different, right? To give you an example, if you wanted urban, fiction fantasy book, well, you would not find that at a bookstore more than likely, or you'd be really hard pressed to find it. Because, unless the bookstore is in downtown Detroit or something, they're probably not going to order any of those from the publisher. And so very few bookstores would order that book. So why is the publisher going to buy it from an author in the first place? But with Amazon, you're selling directly to the end consumer. You're not selling to a publisher. You're not selling to a bookstore. You're selling to the end consumer. And there are people who want those stories. There are people who want those books. And on Amazon, that's what they're typing in. Urban, crime, mystery. Your book will pop up, right? So this is why it's so important to know who your audience is and to find your niche and to speak to them and write for them. And, we're going to see how this carries over into the next few things. But don't try to talk to everybody, because then you're talking to nobody and you can't compete with everything else that's out there. The number two thing that really makes or breaks a lot of titles, a lot of books, is having a terrific title. And let me show you one of ours. So this is one of the books that we put out early on, and it's called Receiving God's Love. Now, how many of you, what would you think this book is about? Right? I mean, it's got God in the title, so we know it's like, obviously it's a Christian book, most likely. And it's something about, feeling like God loves you. What you don't know is that this is actually another weight loss book. And so when, people read this, they don't associate this to weight loss. And even if they are interested in it and they click on it, and when they realize it's a weight loss devotional, they're like, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. And then they move on. So even though we did have a successful book out at the time with this one was, I was only selling like 2, maybe 4 copies a month. And that was it. It was pretty much dead in the water, no matter what I did with it. And that's because this is a pretty great example of what not to do with your book, right? Title is very important. And there's few aspects of that. One, does your title have a good hook? Is it something that kind of stirs the reader's imagination a little bit, right? Does it make them go, oh, that's interesting. What's that about, right? So you want that. This was a pretty good hook. Now, you'll notice originally, the title of the book was Healthy by Design, Weight Loss God's Way. I kind of flipped that because I realized healthy by design is just too vague. Nobody knows what that means, right? I mean, what she's saying is by God's design, you were born, created to be healthy. But there's no context in here for that alone. Weight Loss God's Way is clear. So I made that the focus, right? Because you read Weight Loss God's Way, you know what the book's about. You understand immediately and you're intrigued. What does that mean? How is that possible? What is that about? That's a good hook, right? Let's take So yeah, I'll leave those for now. So a good hook is important. Clarity, and I cannot stress this enough. Clarity is super important. When people read the title, they need to understand what the book is about. That's why this one sold so poorly, because people did not know what that book was about. They didn't understand the title, and although in its day, To Kill a Mockingbird sold tons of books, that would probably be a death sentence on your book today, because nobody would think a book titled To Kill a Mockingbird would be about, a black person being charged for a crime he didn't commit and this lawyer trying to get him off of that, right? Like, you would never make that association. So then the problem, again, in today's world, is that it's all on Amazon, and Amazon is a search engine. So, even if you were looking for a legal book in that era, when you're typing that into Amazon, To Kill a Mockingbird wouldn't come up, right? And that's going to be the next thing. But you need to be clear in your title. Your title has to effectively convey what your story is about. So I'll give you some examples. So, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, right off the bat, you know what that book's about. Story. So yes, as you might guess, this is a book on writing and having, how to craft a great story. The Total Money Makeover. Well, you don't have to think about what that is. It's clear, right? Now, you can be a little bit cute in your title, like this book is called Full, but then the subtitle clearly tells you what the book is about. And if you're doing fiction, the same thing applies. So here's one book, War World, right? And right from this title, because, well, war, so we know it's kind of military action, and world would imply something to do in sci-fi. So right off the bat, you can assume this is a sci-fi military action book, which is exactly what it is, right? So, it's too many authors I see putting a title that's cute, but it doesn't convey anything about what the book is about, or it's even maybe misleading. You would think it's about something else, like this one, for example, and it kills your ability to sell. Because one other thing you need to remember is, because when people go to Amazon or any online bookstore, or even in a bookstore, your book is not appearing in isolation. There's all these other books that come up when somebody does a search, right? All these other books come up. And if one of those clearly says this is what they're looking for, and yours is not clear on that, which one are they going to click on? They're going to click on the one that's clear, right? So your title has to be clear. So yeah, here's some, examples. So Receiving God's Love. This was another one we did early on, Reflections of God's Love, equally as bad, although the subtitle here was clear. And then Elon's, this was his original book that didn't sell at all. A Date with My Ex, A Journey Towards a Life Change. This book is not what you think. This book, his ex in this book, his metaphorical ex, is sugar. Sugar. He's talking about getting off of sugar. There's no reason you would ever come to that conclusion looking at this title. It was terribly unclear. So, I revised these books. I redid the covers, and we're going to get, into covers a little bit later. But look at what I did with these titles. So Love God, Lose Weight. It's clear. You understand immediately this is a weight loss book from a Christian's perspective. Same one here. Pray Powerfully, Lose Weight. You immediately know that these are Christian weight loss books just by the title alone. And then the subtitles here are not only further break down what the book is about, but they also are SEO optimized. Now, this was still a terrible cover, but at least it made it a lot clearer what the book was about. And then this is a newer cover for his book, which is even better yet. So clarity is important, and then SEO is, so what is SEO? SEO means search engine optimization. And that's all talking about, what I said, like with Google and Amazon and YouTube and Pinterest even, and like a lot of these other things, they're search engines. So you type something in and it pulls up something that matches what you're looking for. So this is how people find books now. They find books based on what they're typing in. And so it's important that your cover, your title or subtitle, at least the subtitle, if not the title, has those SEO terms embedded in them. So what do I mean by SEO terms? I mean what they're searching for, the exact wordings of what they're searching for. So let me quickly show you this. I'm going to go to Amazon and I'll do a quick example here for you. So let's say you're looking for a romance book, and you can see as I'm typing in romance, you get this drop down. And the same thing happens on Google and other things, right? And these drop downs are commonly searched for terms. These are search terms, right? So romance books is a very common search term. So is romance books for women's, romance books for teens, and romance manga. Let's say we wanted to be a little more specific, because we like Western romance. Well, you can see that here's the search terms for Western romance. This is a very interesting one, mail order brides. What the heck is that about? But we'll see in a second. Oh, historical romance. Yes, I like historical romance. So now I'm going to click on that, or let me type that in still. Historical romance, right? Mail order brides is still here, right? So it's giving us these terms, right? Let me try it this way. Historical. Oh, and this is interesting. Look at these: clean and Christian. So, these are all search terms these are what people are looking for. And so you want some of these in your book title. So let me click on clean Westerns here. So, all right. So mail order bride here. Now we're seeing why that's showing up, because it's a popular series of books. So, it was a mystery before, but look at a lot of these titles: a historical Western romance, a Western historical romance book, a Western historical romance, right? It's in the title itself. And that's why these books are showing up first, is because they're matching the search term that I'm putting in. And that's what I mean. That is the difference between good SEO and poor SEO. Right. And that's why I'm saying, like, if you use To Kill a Mockingbird now, that's not going to match anybody's SEO at all, ever, for the type of book that it is. Right. And if it's and of course, we do the same thing on our books now. Right. So this is the new cover for Weight Loss God's Way. This is what I did. And all the subtitle here is a lot of SEO right here on the cover. So when people are doing, various searches, I know that my book's going to come up on those searches. And so that's key. The other thing to know is genre conventions. So what do I mean by that? So if you're doing a particular type of book, like a Western book or a supernatural book or a romance book or sci-fi or whatever, don't just, get a cover design. Understand the conventions of your genre. So in other words, if you're doing, say, a supernatural romance, Google that, like, don't Google that. You can go on Amazon, put that in, look at the books that come up, and look at the similarities in those books. And what you're going to find is there's going to be a lot of different books by different authors, but using similar fonts, similar colors, and similar styles. Right? So there's a conventions, for certain genres. And if your book doesn't look like other books in that genre or subgenre or subgenre, then your audience isn't going to realize it's for them, right? You don't want to copy them exactly, but you want to copy them enough that people who buy these kind of books immediately recognize your book is like these other books that they already buy. So you need to be aware of your genre convention. Now, not all books have, fit it nicely into a genre, or not all genres have some, particular conventions, but a lot of fiction books very specifically do. And so it's important that you know what those conventions are and you follow them. Because again, know your audience and speak to your audience. Your cover, your title, should be clear to them. It should hook them with interest, and it should help them to self-identify that this is the type of book that they're looking for. The next thing is you have to have a compelling cover. And I cannot overstate this enough. This is make it or break it. So let me give you a clear example. And this is, one of the distinctions that I made. As I mentioned, when we first put this book out, it was selling 2 copies a month. 2, right? And that's not good by anybody's standards. And even, we had another book that was semi-successful, it wasn't, getting any kind of crossover for people to buy this book. So the problems with this book are, A, this cover is not professionally looking. The title, and we already talked about. The SEO, there's no SEO on this book, right? I basically did everything wrong when I did this book. And one thing that I wanted to share is, even though we had these books out, and even though I did the odd marketing, the sales kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and so I actually had to kind of get serious at some point and say, okay, if I don't do something, our sales are just going to totally tank. And so I went back to the basics, studied what worked, took a few more courses, looked at the competition, and that's where we went from the old cover to the new cover. I went and got a professionally designed cover. I made sure that there was a lot of SEO in these covers. Have a little award up here that we won. This particular, this was the first one I did. This increased the sales of that book 300%. So tripled them overnight just by having a new cover on it and making those key distinctions. But for this book, the one that wouldn't sell at all, new, right? So here's the new version. So new title, as we covered, but a professional looking cover and the SEO, and these 3 elements working together increase the sales of this book, because the inside of the book is the exact same. Nothing's different about the actual book except the cover elements and the title. Increased its sales 3,500%. Yes, 3,500%. Massive change. We went from selling 2 to 70 each month, So that's just a huge change just from having a professional looking cover. And we're going to get over the details of what a good cover is, but that was a massive change. And that's, these are some of the fundamentals. These are what I want you to really understand, because these things will make a huge difference for your books. Do not skimp on a cover. Get a well done cover, because, a poor looking cover reflects poorly on you. And so what do I mean by that? So if you go to a strip plaza and there's 2 places to eat, and you go into one and they've got, just the menus just written on like a whiteboard and sloppy handwriting, and they're just dressed in their, skivvies, and you can see the, fry cook scratching his belly and stuff. You're probably not going to eat there. And if you go into the other place and they got a nice professional looking menu with pictures and everybody's got like a uniform on and stuff, you're probably going to eat there, because even though you have no idea what the food is like, just by the presentation, you're making a bunch of assumptions about what the food's going to be like. They could actually have better food. And the same thing is true for your book. You could have a fantastic book. It could be brilliantly written, but if the cover, it does not look professional, and if it doesn't meet these criteria that I'm going to show you right now, people will just look to the next book that's on their screen, that looks more professional, that is more eye-catching, that's clear on what it is, and they're going to click on that first, and you've lost your sale. So, what are those elements? So eye-catching, it's got to be a good-looking book. If the book's just boring looking, your eyes just kind of glaze over it. So it's got to, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. This isn't really fancy. It's a white book with, a nice kind of pink highlights to it. It's pretty simple, but it's clear. It's got enough to kind of draw you to it. So, eye-catching, it's got to be clear, right? What do I mean by clear? This is, again, another thing that I see so many authors doing wrong, is that they use fancy fonts. And here we go, back to this. This isn't a terrible example, but they'll use like a script font that's hard to read, especially when it's like, tiny little thumbnail image. If people can't clearly, immediately read your book title, their eyes go to the next book, right? And too many authors, the font's too small, or it's in a script that's not, immediately clear, or it blends into the background. The color of the title blends into parts of the background. If anything doesn't, if you can't read that title immediately, if you got to stop and think about it for a second, you lost them. You've lost them, because their eyes just go to the next book, right? So it's got to be immediately clear what it is. The title's got to be clear. The subtitle doesn't have to be. And the author name should be clear, but the title definitely has to be clearly legible, even at a thumbnail image. And the picture on the book has to clearly convey what's in the book. Now, this is one thing that I really did wrong with my children's book. It's a lovely image. It's eye-catching, but it's not clear. We know there's a cat, so we can assume there's something to do with the cat, but the book's really not about the cat. The book is really about a young girl who's struggling in school. And this cover does nothing to convey that. And so I'm actually getting this redone right now. The author, the illustrator is redoing this cover so that it's a lot clearer. And when you see it, you immediately understand what the book is about, because that current title cover, although it's pretty and eye-catching, isn't clear. And professional, which we've already covered. So, those three things, you've got to make sure that your cover meets those three things. So the last thing we're going to talk about today, and this is marketing made easy. And marketing is really important. You can't just put your book out. So even though when we did put our book out, we had some success, the sales kept drifting off. And I've talked to many other authors, and they have the same thing. They get it out there, they do an initial media blitz, and the book sells, but then it just starts tapering off. And this is just a reality, because there's always new books coming out of Amazon. They're doing their marketing. And so you have to be doing something to keep your book going, to keep it active and selling, right? Now, what I'm going to suggest here doesn't mean that you've got to be, going on Facebook and screaming, buy my book, and that doesn't work at all. And I know most authors hate marketing, but you don't have to market, because I don't actually do a lot of marketing for my books, but what I do is use Amazon ads. So what are Amazon ads? So, if you go on to Amazon and you do a search, and I will show you here, just on a quick Amazon search. We're going to see that some of these books that come up say this, sponsored, right? So what that means, if it says sponsored, it means the publisher or author paid Amazon to show this book when somebody does the search term, or when somebody searches for this category of book. And so, it's showing up now on the first page here. That's where you want your book to be, on the first page. Now, you might be thinking, well, if I got good SEO, won't it just show up on the first page anyways? Yes and no, because SEO isn't the only thing Amazon looks at. The other thing Amazon looks at is sales. And so if it's got a book that's an 80% match and a book that's a 20% match, but the 80% match hasn't sold any books in the last 2 weeks, and the 20% match has sold 100 books in the last 2 weeks, it's going to show that 20% match first. And so even though your book can have a good SEO and it will show up somewhere, it won't show up on the first page. It'll be down, if you go down here, you'll see there's more pages, 2, 3, up to 20. Your book will be in there somewhere. But if you're not on this first page, you will be starved of sales, right? You need to be here because this is where the action is. But when you're first starting, when you just got your book out, you don't have sales. So how do you get on the first page to begin with? And the answer is Amazon ads, or you have a whole marketing campaign going on elsewhere, but I'm not talking about that here. Amazon ads can get you, boom, right here on the first page. And so, yes, you're going to spend a bit of money on the ads to get your book there. But if you've done these other fundamentals right, if your cover is professional looking, if the title clearly conveys kind of what this book is about, right, and it follows the genre conventions, then as soon as people come here, they're going to go, this is the kind of book I'm looking for, and they will click on it. And what happens is these people click on it, and if you get a good write-up, because, this matters too. You have to have a great write-up and you have to have great reviews. If you have all these fundamentals right, then they're going to buy your book. And if people keep buying your book, guess what? Then Amazon starts to show it on the first page, even if it's not being paid for, right? You see, there's a lot of these other books here. Mail Order Bride, we already said this is a popular series, right? It's here on the first page, not being sponsored because it's got sales, right? So if you've got steady sales, Amazon says, oh, other people have bought this book, so I'm going to show this book on the first page, right? But to get on the first page to begin with, you need to use Amazon ads to make sure that your book is showing up when people are doing related searches or searching in related categories. So Amazon ads is not easy, just run an ad and your book is solved. It's a little bit more to it. It can be a little bit fiddly, but it is an effective, probably the most effective way, the most consistent way to get your book in the front of the people who want to buy it, the people who are literally searching for a book like yours. And so it is a key strategy that I and other authors use to keep our books selling consistently over the long term. So let me just go back here. And the great thing with Amazon ads, as I say, is you don't have to get out of your comfort zone and be getting in front of a whole bunch of people or talking to a whole bunch of people or doing a whole bunch of media or things like that, if those are things that you don't enjoy, right? If you're good with them, do them. But this is a way that you can be focused on writing your book and still running some Amazon ads on the side and letting Amazon do the work for you. So, you need to run them to be discovered, to get in the flow. And when I say get in the flow, what I mean is, as I said, once you start having sales, then Amazon registers that and your book will start showing up higher and higher and higher in those search results. And once you get onto that first page naturally and organically, you could even stop running the ads and still continue to get sales. Mind you, if your ads get good return on investment, if you're spending $1 for every ad and getting 3 or 4 back, just keep them going. but you can run them and then stop them and still, once you're there, you're in that flow. Amazon knows your book sells. Amazon knows people doing this kind of search tend to buy your book. It will keep showing it. And the last thing here is create associations. And it's not just about appearing on that search result. Amazon also puts it on other books' pages. So if you've ever been on Amazon and looked at a book, you'll see like down there, it's like people also bought or people also looked at or other books that you might be interested in. That's the associations you want to create. So when you have regular sales, right, Amazon starts to notice, okay, people who bought this book also bought your book, right? And then it'll start to say, hey, if you're buying this book, you might want to look at this book as well. And your book will show up in those, areas. People also bought, people also looked at, other books you might be interested in. And once you have those associations, those help your book to continue selling all the time. So if people don't see the book, if you don't see a book that you want on the shelf, write it. That's a quote from Beverly Clearly. There's always a need. There's always something that's out there for you to reach. But even though I've covered all of this, I know there's a lot of you who are just going to be like, whoa, that's so much. I don't know where to start with that. Let me help you. When I first did this back in the fall, my initial intention was just to do a webinar and to help people, but I soon realized that there's just far too much that I could ever cover in a webinar, and people will need more help. So I said to myself, let's create something for them. So I just put it out there, who would like me to create something like this? And a bunch of people said we would love that. And so I did, and ran an initial academy for them, and they loved it and they found it immensely helpful. So let me help you to sell your books and find your fans as well. So what I've done is all of this, everything I've covered here, creating a great title, creating a book cover, how to run Amazon ads, the nitty gritty little details, everything you need to know, how to get raving reviews, how to, write great copyright, like everything you need to know in order to make your book sell and sell consistently, how to find your audience in the first place, all of that, I've, broken it down into a course. And it's a lot of information, but I've broken it down very, very simply into very small digestible bits, all video. So, you can actually see me going through the process where that's needed, and in like 5 to 15 minute little chunks. So you can just watch a little bit. There's an exercise. You can go and, actually go do it and then come back and take the next part. So, really what I'm trying to do is just take out the overwhelm, right? Make it easy for you, make it simple for you, and give it to you in little digestible bits so you can go through it as it's relevant to you, and apply it immediately. Right. So I've created this course now. It's over 70 lessons, again, very small little bits, and you can go through it at your own time. This course alone would be $1,000 from, my contemporaries who sell courses like this. They're typically $700 to $1,000 for a course like this. But I also do, because I don't profess to know everything, every month I bring on a guest speaker, an author, or somebody in the industry who's had great success, so they can share what they've learned and what worked for them. So you're getting other people's perspectives as well. And we've had some great authors already come on and share their top strategies and what's worked for them and how they went about it and the results that they got. And that is just gold. So we do that. There's a private accountability group. So you can, ask questions in the group and get, responses from other authors or from myself, and a place to just be accountable and to share. And on top of that, so these things alone this would sell $700 to $1,000 monthly. Guess that would be at least $100, if not $1,000, for that kind of insight into top performing authors' strategies, private accountability group. You can't even put a price on that. And then on top of that, I host weekly coaching calls. So every week I'm live on a Wednesday, well, most every week, not every single week, giving you the latest strategies and answering your questions. So you have an opportunity to ask, wherever you are in the writing process, in the marketing process, in the production process, wherever you are, you have an opportunity to ask me directly the questions that's relevant to you at the time. So writing coaching programs go to from $5,000 to $8,000 typically. Now it's not one-on-one coaching, but even still, this is thousands of dollars for that type of thing. So yeah, the value of these things is like $4,000, but I know that's out of reach for most people. But wait, I'm not done. Because I want to give you everything you need in order to be successful, I've created a whole bunch of bonus things. Now, I'm still working on some of these. This is still something that's in development, but most of these are already in the vault and you can watch them anytime. A couple courses on how to write your book, how to set up, get your book on Amazon, how to do an online store, easy, where you don't have to worry about, distributing their books. You don't have to worry about taxes for all the different states. Easy setup. How to run Facebook ads for your books, how to set up on Google Books, which is a very little known and underrated secret, how to set up on Ingram, and Ingram will distribute your books everywhere in the world. It is the widest distributor of books out there. And there's more. Getting reviews, getting book awards, interior design, cover design, all kinds of book promotions, like running a 99-cent book promotion, running a ongoing free book promotion, running a free book, just pay the shipping promotion. I'm sure you've seen all of these at some point. Where to find talent, where to hire cover designers or interior designers or editors or all of those things and more. There is so much to cover. So every week I'm giving you a little bit more information, and that's all accessible to you at any time. So, I mean, the value here is now over $6,000. And again, I know you can't afford that. And my goal, my heart, my mission is to help authors to have more success, to reach more people. And so I'm making this at a super low price. Now, as I mentioned, I'm still creating some of this content. The bulk, because I started this in September, the main course is finished. A lot of the bonus courses are finished, and I'm still filling out all of those and still working out some little bugs with, not bugs, but refining the website experience, refining the community experience. So it's still in beta. And because it's in beta, I'm giving you an opportunity to jump in now at this really low price of $497, which is exceptionally low for what you're getting for live coaching calls and all this content. You won't find anywhere where you can get a price this low. But I recognize that there's a need for you for that. And it's my heart to help people. I can't do all this for free though. I mean, I would if I could. If I was already rich, then I would be happy to do this for free. But I do have to be compensated for the time and effort that I put into it. $497 for lifetime access. So, you pay once and you'll have access to all of this content and to the ongoing coaching calls and the guest speakers for as long as you want. It's potentially for years and years and years that we're doing this. But I know even $497 can be a stretch for a lot of people. So I've also introduced a monthly option, so you can just pay $47 a month for as long as you want to get access to this. And I guarantee that you're going to love this content. If you're not completely happy with it, anytime in the first 30 days, you can ask for a full refund and I will give it to you, no questions asked, because I know the value of this content. I know the value of having me there with you every week. And I haven't even spoken about a lot of the things I do. One of the key fundamental things that I do as well is because I know what a challenge this is and how overwhelming can feel and how dispiriting it can feel if things aren't going well. So every week I do a little motivational message for my members on a Monday. And, I do a lot to keep you encouraged and keep you engaged. Really speak to really heart-centered and Christian authors. That is, my background, and those are the people who I really feel compelled to serve. There's a lot of people who just want to use a book to be like a brochure, just to get that bestseller distinction, and then they don't care about the book. They just want to get speaking engagements or sell their coaching services, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That's just not who I created this for. I created this for serious authors who really believe in what they're doing and really want to see it get into the hands of people, of readers, so they can have an impact on their lives. And that's my goal, is to help you, to help them, so it's a better world for all of us. So if this sounds of interest to you, sellmorebooks.blog/offer is where you can learn more about this, get more details on this. But there's more. If you act fast, for the first 10 people who jump on this offer, I'm going to throw in a free consultation call with me. So free 45-minute consultation, so I can really, understand where you are at right now in your process, what your book is about, and I can really give you some laser-focused feedback on how to, make your book better, how to produce it better, how to market it better, depending on where you're at. And so I can point you right to the right resources for you to be focused on in your journey right now. So normally these consultations are $97. I'm going to throw it in free. So if you do go to the sellmorebooks.blog/offer, you'll see there's an opportunity to add that on. Don't do that if if you're jumping on right now. I'm going to add it for you for free. So that's just for the, as I say, the next few people who jump on there. So I'll let you know if that's you. And, if you want the consultation and you hoped you would get it for free and you didn't, don't worry, I'll let you know. We can always add it on after. But I can only do, so many, because that is actually my time, and my time is limited. I can't, unfortunately, give that to everybody, obviously. But, for those people who know this, who want to take action, this is my way of honoring you for being an action taker, and for being serious about your craft, and for really caring about the impact that you're going to have on people with your book and your story and your mission and your message. And that's, as I say, that's really where my heart is to help you to get your message out, to impact the lives of other people, and to make this world a better place for all of us. So if I can help you to do that, then, that just means the world to me. And that's really where I feel called to be at this time. And, as you can see on the design here, we are a Christian organization. You don't have to be Christian to work with us, but we are unabashedly Christian. And, we are ideal for Christian authors, but 95% of everything I'm teaching applies to all books. So, if you're a heart-centered author and you've got a great message that you really want to get out, I am happy to work with you as well. And if you are a Christian author, this is a program for you, because you will be with other Christian authors working together to make sure that we're growing the kingdom and impacting people's lives with the word of God. So that is it for this. So I hope this has been, well, I don't hope, I'm sure this has been a fantastic value to you, and you've learned a lot. And I do hope, if you take nothing else from this, that you apply these principles. You put on a clear and SEO title, You get your cover done professionally, make sure it looks sharp, make sure it's clear, not too cluttered, not overly busy, make sure that it's easy to read, font, and use Amazon ads to help you to get your book in front of people. But once again, if you don't have a clearly defined audience, it's very hard to get it in front of the right people. Having a general audience, your book just shows up everywhere and most people aren't interested, even if you've done everything else right. So those are, I pray that you take those and do, use those to bless your book. But if you would like to work with me more, then sellmorebooks.blog/offer. I look forward to helping you impact this world with your story and your message. God bless you. That's it. Thank you for being here. I honor you and appreciate you just showing up, whether you're here live or watching the recording. The fact that you're here, especially the fact that you're all the way at the end, means that you are serious about what you're doing and serious about getting your message out. And that puts you already in a category of people who excel and people who achieve and people who get the results they want, because most people don't even do this. I see so many people just put their book out on Amazon, and just leave it. And it just, so the fact that you are taking initiative and showing up here and watching this video, thank you so much. You are on your way to making a difference in this world. And for that, I thank you. And I pray for your success. God bless. And I hope to meet some of you in our Sell More Books Academy. One more time, sellmorebooks.blog/offer. I hope to see you in our Sell More Books Academy, and it's going to be great. You'll see some of the testimonies from the people who took it in the fall. Everybody loved it, and I'm sure you will too.